I want to teach you about Plato. Can I teach you guys about Plato? Let me teach you about Plato. I think you need to learn about Plato. Let me teach you a little about Plato. Nothing intimidating, don't worry. For Plato, he resolves to answer the question of forms. Both MCM, a variable is a form. Okay? How do I explain like this? The question of forms. Okay? Before we begin, I'm going to get rid of this. Before we begin, let's think about the variables in MCM and CMC, right? Money and commodity. What are these? Money. Money is the total alienated human ability in general. Money is access to all the products of human labor and ability. What is money itself? Can you guys think about this? A store of value. What a dipshit. What a dipshit. A store of value. What's value? What is fucking value? It's a store of value. What's value? Before we get to value, does money come first or does value come first? Do you have some value lying around that you got to store in some money? No. By the time you have value, you have money. So let's ask the question, what is money? A value utility. What a cuck answer. Oh, it's value utility. Sorry. No, it's not. It's not fucking utility. It's not utility, right? It's not utility. Utility for what? To do what? To do what specifically? Money is alienated human ability in general. Money is the access to all the products, human labor, and ability. But what is money itself? But what is money itself? What possibly gives rise to the separation between money on the one hand and the sum total of labor, products of labor, etc. on the other? Has anyone ever thought about this, by the way? Everyone in this chat is a cuck. You are all cucks. It's a tool. It's a tool. Everything's a tool. Because you're such a wise and smart guy, everything's a tool, right? Everything is a tool. I'm just using it as a tool to play video games. It's all a tool to play Minecraft. You don't even know what you want in this life. What gives rise to this distinction of money? Why must money be separate from everything else that money buys for? Money equals all the labor, goods, and services of a society, right? Money is what measures them. Why is money separate from all of those things is the question. Why is money itself separate from all of those things? I've talked about this before on stream. This exact thing. For example, let's say you have two tribes, right? Let's say you have two tribes. And these two tribes, one of them produces, I don't know, beads, right? Beaded necklaces or some shit. And the other one produces pelts. So one produces pelts, one produces beaded necklaces. I don't know, this is a stupid example, right? So the things that people in this tribe need, right, are finite. Whatever we need, we get as a tribe, and we can exchange it with another tribe if they produce something we don't have. And we have to exchange it because we can't just take it from them, or we can just take it from them, in which case we're just going to go enslave them. But insofar as we're not going to have slavery, in order for us to deal with another tribe, we're going to exchange with each other, right? Does that make sense? Can you guys stop getting ahead of yourself and just rein it back and just fucking simplify it for a second? Okay, so that's bartering. You guys ever heard of bartering? One good for another good. That's bartering. You're bartering. I did. It's a tool. You are literally a stupid fuck. When your mom told you that you were smart, she was doing you a disservice. So bartering, that's fine. But at what point do you have the abstraction of something called money? What's fucking money? At what point can this bartering give rise to one commodity whose sole value, so to speak, is to exchange for other commodities? It itself is not a commodity that's useful in any kind of fucking way. Money is not useful. It's not useful. It has no fucking use beyond exchanging for other commodities. So at what point do you arrive at that abstraction is the question you have to fucking ask of money. What if you need to quantify the value of the barter? No, it's not. So many fish equals so many pelts. You don't need money to quantify that. FWP just said something really smart for the first time in this dumbass chat. Yes, debt. Now you're getting somewhere interesting. If you're indebted in some kind of way, you owe others something. You have some kind of obligation to them, and you owe them. You have a debt to them. Let's say, for example, someone gives you some sheep, right? You owe them a debt. But for what? What do you owe them? Do you owe them sheep? Well, there's a debt in general. You owe me so-and-so sheep. I don't have sheep. Okay, so what can be the equivalent of those sheep you just gifted me? Literally everything. Suddenly everything in general and in the abstract must be subjected to a common standard. 5 sheep equals what? 5 fish and 2 pelts and, whatever. Right? Something to keep in mind. We're trying to get close to the question of what money is, right? What money itself is. I'm not saying money is debt. I'm saying, how can we think about, in this hypothetical abstraction, how you can arrive at the abstraction of money? And debt is an intelligent way of trying to arrive at it. But I don't know if that's necessarily correct. We're dealing with chicken and egg fucking hypotheticals. Historically speaking, it's much more complicated, right? Everything is always already there historically, right? This, by the way, this idea of evolutionism is the completely biggest bullshit, discredited piece of shit, stupid thing that's ever been associated with Marxism, because we know it's not fucking true. Every single idea of evolutionism of a human society is completely wrong. Of stages, different stages. It's completely wrong. But anyway, you guys are children, and I'm sorry, but you're just stupid people. Money is something to pay back. The horse does this, the donkey does this, the lion does this. This is why the grass is green and the sky's blue. You're a fucking idiot. Alright? Before you ask the question of why something exists, or what it serves, or what it is for, ask what it is. Anyway, didn't I tell you we're going to talk about Plato? So bear with me. The essence of labor abstracted. What's labor? I'll tell you why, more or less. Because in every human society in the history of mankind, there was one object of worship, veneration, whatever, that was not only the particular deity of each and every society and tribe, but was literally the way in which they were interfacing with the whole of being. The whole universe, the whole cosmos, everything. All being. The whole of being is one and the same as the common object of all human society. And this itself is given expression ritualistically, symbolically, and so on, in some kind of way. All society is organized around it. You understand? The total human ability and labor of a given society is an expression of mankind's relationship to it, to this common social object. You're going slow. It sounds like we replaced one abstraction with another. Should I just ban your dumb fuck from my fucking chat? You stupid fuck. I don't have time for dumb fucking children who can't think patiently and need to arrive at a conclusion immediately without thinking. No one has a fucking gun to your head, bitch. You can think about this. You understand? You don't have to arrive at a conclusion yet. You're not forced to. No one's fucking life depends on it right now. No one has a gun to your fucking head and is forcing you to spit out a conclusion. You can actually just shut your stupid fuck mouth and think for a second. The question is, can this common object of society, right? Let's assume society is communist for a moment. It has one common object. Let's just begin with that abstraction. The question is, what does it mean for such a society to have an economy? An economy, right? Let's do some Heideggerian bullshit where we look up the etymology of a word and develop and explore the meaning of that word from that, right? So let's just do that for a second. I want to just give you guys an idea of how you do this. So here's the etymology from Google of economy. It comes from the root word of oikos, which means not house. By the, I will explain the meaning of the word oikos in Greek. It doesn't just mean house, by the way. And nemein, which means marriage. Okay? So this is oikonomia, household management. Oikonomia is the word it comes from. There you go. That's the source of economy. Oikos, however, does not just mean house. So this is a misleading simplification. Interestingly, an oikos is a form of living being. This is the oikos from Wikipedia, right? Which says it refers to three distinct concepts: the family, the family's property, and the house. The oikos is the basic unit of society in most Greek city-states. So, here's what's going on. With the oikos, right? The oikos, you are dealing with the way in which, let's say, a given unit of a society, this one communist society, hypothetically, it's a communist society, right? In our head. This unit of this communist society, how does it reproduce itself? How does it attend to its living being? How does it feed itself, clothe itself, shelter itself? How does it manage its family, its way of living, its way of life, right? This is oikos. But then you have the question of the oikos, for example, when given ideal representation, enters into contradiction with the means of its reproduction. So, for example, let's say, for instance, you are a communist household. I don't fucking know, right? You're just a household in a communist society, an oikos, some family unit or something, right? And you have to reproduce your existence. You may have the ideal, for example, in the reproduction of your existence. The aim and end of your life is what? Well, the aim and end of your life, if you're living in some kind of social society, is going to be beyond yourself. It's going to be, for example, for your family. For your family. And then beyond your family, for your tribe. And beyond your tribe, for your, gens? How do they call it? For your gens. Then beyond gens, for your state, right? For your state. But this is not one and the same with the means by which you do this. There's a contradiction. Any idealization, for example, of the ultimate ends and aims of your oikos, your living being, of what your living being is different from the material prerequisites to reproducing it. So materially speaking, for example, you're going to have to get into the dirt of material reality that is completely, let's say, indifferent to this idealization. And you have to obey it as something that needs to be attended to on its own terms. So I'm going to repeat the question. Let's say we have a society with a completely common object. Completely common object. It's a communist kind of society, right? Hypothetically. Or maybe it's like Plato's Republic, if that helps. You necessarily have a form of living being corresponding to this relation to the common object, an oikos. And in the process of this living being, through this oikos, you have the basic requirement to attend to the material prerequisites to its reproduction. So an economy is opposed to the state in a simple way, right? This communist state, let's say. This communist society. Lol, you said communist state. Yes, I fucking did, bitch. Suck my cock. Communism is stateless, though. Shut the fuck up, you dumb bitch. You don't know the first fucking thing about communism. The living being. So what is living being, first of all? What is oikos in relation to the ultimate ends and aims of the Platonic ideal state, the republic? Oikos basically means that insofar as I have as my ideal aim and ends the republic, I necessarily must still attend not only to my needs as a human being to reproduce myself, but to my relationship with my forebears, with nature, with my progeny. This is living being. Living being is the manner by which one reproduces this cycle. After entering into some form of intercourse with the ideal's opposite, which is nature or material reality, and reproducing oneself, right? Reproducing one's family, reproducing one's household, and so on and so on. That's the oikos. The oikos is the living being. But how that occurs isn't going to be determined by the ideal of the state. Because you can't know. You understand? Insofar as we are attending to our material premises, feeding, clothing ourselves, and doing all this kind of stuff, dealing with this otherness of nature, material reality, this otherness of our own premises, of even, for example, attending to the needs of our body as human beings, right? Like feeding ourselves and shit, right? This cannot be known preemptively by the ideal form of the state or the common community. Which means that is what at the point in which the economy must be treated as a sphere separate from the state. The state is not one and the same with the economy, because the economy deals with the material premises of the state and the individuals that form the state, that comprise the state. That's why you have that basic distinction. That's why you have that basic distinction in the first place. But here's the thing. The relationship between the state as a common universality of a given society, and by universality, don't be intimidated by this word. Let's say we all live on a fucking island somewhere, for example, and we have a Platonic republic, the ideal republic on a fucking island. The universality of the state will extend no farther than the material reality of its constituents, no? So insofar as we are part of this island, the state is universal. So don't get too fucking caught up on this. Where money enters into the picture is, curiously, the otherness of the state, the ideal republic, let's say, of Plato. I am not, by the way, describing the genesis or origin of money historically. I'm trying to allow you to think in this abstraction so you can understand what money is. You can understand what money is in the first place. Okay? Please keep that in mind. I'm not describing a causal relationship of the chicken and the egg and so on and so on. I'm describing this so we can arrive at a better concept of what money is, or a better understanding of what money is. So, with regard to the universality of the state on the one hand, and on the other hand, the otherness of nature, the otherness of the material premises, that mankind must necessarily enter into some form of intercourse with in order to reproduce the ideal republic. You have, on the one hand, Plato's philosophical abstraction of the ideal republic. But this republic, for example, the manner by which it is reproduced cannot be attended to ideally. Hence, the need to arrive at a fundamental distinction between statehood and economics. The way in which, in material reality, we reproduce this republic is a different business than how you do it ideally, right? In the sphere of politics, or in the sphere of, for example, the philosophy of politics. Politics, maybe you say, why are you idealizing politics? What's this Platonic idealism? Why not have a Hobbesian materialism of politics? After all, politics is founded on the ruthless. Politics is a material thing. It's based on material power, ruthless bloodshed, and so on and so on. Because it's easier if we begin with the ideal republic, because the material reality of politics, of polities, would make me veer off into a different conversation, right? So let's just begin with the universal ideal state of Plato, so we can arrive at the distinction of economy, right? Now, let's, even in a Hobbesian jungle where everyone's, it's battle royale and everyone's killing each other, last man standing is the king, that everyone must obey or whatever, right? The Hobbesian idea. Even then, the question then stands is, what is the expression of that sovereignty or sovereignty, right? In material reality, insofar as how people reproduce themselves. Well, that's not something the sovereign is capable of willing or determining. It's the same thing as the ideal republic. It's the same contradiction, that we're speaking of. And by the way, the abstraction I'm giving you is actually backwards. Because from a materialist perspective, first you have living being, and then you have the this ideal republic or the state, right? But we're learning it backwards because we begin from this idealist prejudice, so we're working backwards. Anyway, with the economy, we are of course dealing with many different material things. Many different material things. Different discrete things that are exchanged, that are bought, that are sold. We're not really dealing with a subsistence economy at this point. If we're dealing with an economy of pure subsistence, what need would there be? Or how could there be, rather, a common state in the first place? If everyone's just attending to their own subsistence, surely at the very least, there needs to be some kind of surplus to that subsistence that's used to reproduce this common social state. Or what else unites people's sociality, right? So clearly we're beyond a mere reality of subsistence for separate households, right? Here's the thing. Just in as much as we have the universalism of this ideal state or republic, there's also a dark universal, a kind of dark universal. What's this dark universalism? We have on the one hand the ideal state. The ideal state. No? The ideal state. On the other hand, you have what I describe as the material premises of that state in the form of the economy. But the economy is composed of various separate different things. How do you get to money? How do you get to money? An economy is a bunch of random shit. Horse shit and fish and fur and, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like horse and sheep and cattle and grain and potatoes, whatever the fuck you want, right? Assorted shit. You have one universalism of the state and a bunch of shit, right? The shit being some kind of testament to the otherness of the state that the economy attends to. This otherness being nature, material premises, and more specifically, and more importantly, human labor. The otherness of human labor, the metabolism of human labor, the manner by which mankind enters into intercourse with nature. It's curious. I don't want to detract. It's curious. If you ever read Marx early, it's curious, this passage in the 7th chapter of Capital. You think Marx is a materialist, right? So he places emphasis on materiality. Why does Marx say this? We presuppose labor in the form of stamps. It is exclusively human. A spider conducts operations that resemble those of a weaver, and a bee puts to shame many an architect in the construction of her cells. But what distinguishes the worst architect from the best of bees is this, that the architect raises his structure in imagination before he erects it in reality. Isn't that a little weird when you read that first? It was for me. Like 10 years ago when I was in high school in freshman year and I was trying to read Capital. I read this passage and it really weirded me out because I thought, wait, I thought Marx was a materialist. How can he define labor based on the fact that an architect first idealizes the object of his production and then works upon it? Shouldn't it be the opposite? It's a little strange. Isn't this a kind of idealist view? First you have the ideal and then you work toward it, and that's how we define it? It confused me, right? But I understand it now because it makes a lot of sense. What is human labor? One of the ways you can think about human labor, right, is the way in which I have an ideal ends of production. I just am using here the total universal Platonic ideal republic as this ideal of labor. So it's a communist Platonic society. Plato was obviously a communist, right? We all know that. I hope everyone here is smart enough to know that. But first you have this, and then the manner by which one reproduces this by entering into some kind of relationship with nature. That is labor. That is labor. That's labor. This transformative process where man changes his surroundings in conformity with some kind of ideal, that is the power of labor for Marx. We have on the one hand the state, Plato's ideal republic, as the manifestation of the common ends of all life, the common ends of every constituent citizen and human being that's under its dominion. And on the other hand, you have the state's economy, which represents its otherness, labor being the mediating factor between the two. This otherness, as it happens, possesses form. It's not just that the universal immediacy of the state possesses form and unity. The otherness also possesses form and unity. The economy is not just some collection of shit, as I said. Because the economy in the first place is based on reproducing the ideal republic. So how can it just be a collection of shit? What about, and here's the question, what does the ideal republic itself trade for? Sheep trade for this. Dog shit trades for this. Fish trade for that. Bear pelts trades for that. What does the ideal republic itself trade for? What is its economic... how can you turn the state itself into a commodity? How do you turn the state itself into a commodity? Commoditize the state itself. The universalism of the state to become a commodity. Or at least to become an object of economic exchange. That, my friends, is exactly what a little coin does. A little coin that has an inscription, has the head of state on it, the emperor. That's what it does. That's what that little coin means. To tell you the truth, the state, every state, is a whore. The state is a whore. That's the truth. It pretends to be a sovereign, a sublime and common unity of the people, right? It's raised above the whole of society and the world. But the state must be involved in the business of its own economy. Because the economy is nothing other than the economy of the state itself. Every single form of currency in history was political. One of the primary and even exclusive sometimes functions of the state in history was the monopoly on coinage. Even when gold was the universal form of currency, the state still has a monopoly on the coinage of coins. I'll tell you the truth. I said the state is a whore, but it's more like a kind of walk of shame. It's a gold coin, a glorious solar, right? It's a piece of the sun, a piece of gold, right? I'm kind of describing it in a vulgar way, honestly. I'm kind of being like a little critical and snarky and shit. Because there's a beauty of money too. It's not just a prostitute. And then it has inscriptions of God, religion, or the emperor, or whatever, right? And this is the dignity of the state. The state says, in confronting the universality of its own material otherness, the coin is the response to that. Remember, the word dialectic comes from dialogue. Like dialogue, right? So you have the ideal republic, and then you have this otherness the republic itself cannot account for on its own terms. This otherness of economy and human labor, right? So the state, so this is the state, here's nature. The state responds with a coin. You see? The coin is its response, its shield. Its shield. The thing is, the state had already gotten fucked. It already got fucked. This was its response to getting fucked. First, you had the state. Then you had the otherness of economy, for example, labor. By this time, this has opened its mouth. The state had gotten fucked. And this is its response, the coin. Currency, money.